I'm Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we are joined today on our reality panel by Nneka Onuorah, director of Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Grrrls on Prime Video. Nneka, let's start at the very beginning. How did you originally meet Lizzo, and how did you get attached to this competition that searches for her next group of big girl dancers?
It's so funny, like the universe is interesting to me because I actually have been introduced to Lizzo in different ways. One time I was asked to do a documentary on Lizzo, and then that kind of fell through. I had friends who used to dance for her, and we were trying to collaborate on something and it fell through. And this time in particular, Maya Coy and Micaiah Green, who worked with Macro Studios previously, was working on this project through Lizzo Bangers. And they were like, Nneka, we think you would be the perfect person to do this Lizzo project. And they actually introduced me to Lizzo because I used to be a dancer. And I, lived as a plus size dancer and worked as a plus size dancer before I started directing. And they were like, this would be so hot for you. And I typically do lots of stories that are about underrepresented communities that have to do with movement and freedom and fun. And so when I met Lizzo, Lizzo really made it very, very, very clear that her vision for these girls was to really tell a story that's about them, getting them booked, showcasing their talent, and showing the world that they exist in powerful ways and happy ways. And so when Lizzo told me about that, the EPs told me about that in Amazon, I was like, this is actually the perfect project for me. In one way, because it represents who I am and I feel connected to the girls specifically and Lizzo. But beyond that, it's like a chance to revolutionize the genre itself. I come from a documentary background. And so I was like, I want to call this docuality, is what I told them. I was like, I want to bring a sense of authenticity and letting the authenticity and the storytelling lead the format rather than the format lead what we see. So that's really what I did on this show.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was gonna ask you about that because I'm a huge fan of Drag Race and Survivor, but they're very formulaic shows. And this is a very no formula at all. Is that very freeing as a director?
It is freeing as a director. I came onto set and, people are very used to directors only calling this shot, that shot. And I was like, listen, I come from documentary. In order for the audience to connect to these women in this competition, we have to know them. We have to tell a story through their body, through their clothes, what color what clothes they wear. We have to spend time with them. I would leave set and go sit with them and how are you? Where do you come from? We talked, we exchanged information. And that connection to me between the people who are behind the camera and in front of the camera is very essential for the connection of the audience. And I think that as a director and as a documentarian first, I was like, I can bring that flavor to this. And so it was freeing. And everybody was like watching me. Like I told my camera guys who are used to like standing in one spot, I said, hey, we're getting in there. This is dancing. I want to break that idea of just looking at, a group of dancers as if we're just staring, if we're separated from them, let's bring it and make it more intimate. So like, let's switch these to prime lenses. Why don't you move from there and get very, very close? Like the prime lenses require you to get close. So I wanted that intimate feel. I told them to romanticize curves in the body. A lot of people would see specific body image things and like, oh, don't show that. Like, that's a role or the stomach looks too big. I was like, no, that's beauty. That's powerful. Like, let's go in, let's lean into those things. And so it was very freeing as a director. And I think I also freed a lot of people who are like, union workers who are typically like shot, turn, pivot, this, that, and the third. But like, how do we use our creative eye, the story, and let it lead us into a space that the story feels real. And it feels like when people are at home during the pandemic and all these times, they just want to connect. At the end of the day, that's all we want to do. And so I think that the show created that connection and that joy while still giving you that competition vibe that you love on other shows as well.
In the third episode, you actually appear in the music video challenge. You're getting your hands on with the girls. You're stepping in front of the camera. What was that like collaborating with them?
It was beautiful to collaborate the girls because honestly, that collaboration on episode 3 was my very first introduction to the girls, like on a more deep level, beyond casting, saying, hello, this is what we're doing. I got to like hear their stories, help facilitate and tell their stories, help critique them and give them, a voice, within the piece. Because like a lot of women that you've seen on the show, they talked about facing eating disorders. different things like that. Those are things that we got to connect on as we spoke. And so I think that was just a beautiful thing to come behind and get in front of the screen and actually connected me closer to those women.
Mm-hmm. And one of the contestants, she went a little over the line and complimented you in a way that made Lizzo feel uncomfortable. What was your reaction to that moment? And do you think it was handled by Lizzo perfectly, like how it should have been?
Absolutely. I think, I think that situation, I wasn't expecting her to hit on me. She asked for my consent first, which was a rule in the house that makes sure you ask for consent on certain things. And I think Lizzo handled it well. At the end of the day, when you're in a professional environment, it requires you to be professional and focus on work, not like your personal, things you like. And I think it's important for them to understand, like, because we're not giving a soft hand on these girls. These girls had to technically dance. They really had to know how to compete and dance and to get in the workforce. And because Lizzo's whole, MO was that these girls need to be hired, and some of these girls, since the show, have gotten signed to agencies, like block agencies, commercial agencies, dance agencies that you never see. And so it's important to arm them with the right information. So I definitely think she handled it well.
My favorite part of the show is the awards. She gives out 100% that bitch award. She gives out the juice award, and it really helps accentuate the positivity of the show and the camaraderie of the girls. Can you talk about that aspect of the show?
Absolutely. I think encouragement is important. We all need to be encouraged at a time. And the 100% that bitch award and the juice award, I feel like it was a sense of confidence and reassurance to these girls, which is super important. As much as you're critiquing, it's important to uplift. And I think that's what made the show so special, is that it was uplifting. But the fact that it was called 100% that bitch or juice, it's not like, here's a sad sob story, you know what I'm saying? That, it's like, no, you are it. And that energy radiated through the show is like, this wasn't like some downtrodden show where we're, telling sad stories about all of the oppression that exists. We know that, but these girls are like any other girls, and they should be able to flex and flaunt, on how good they are. And I think it definitely tells the mind to start celebrating yourself. And I think that is equally as important as the competition. So those awards were like very affirming to the girls, and it was like a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. When the Bonnaroo Festival got canceled, not because of COVID, but because of a hurricane, what was the reaction like behind the scenes? Like, how big of a disappointment was that for you as the director and the production team?
Oh, it was really disappointing for us because we were just about to leave, and then everything changed, like, I don't know, probably like a day before. It was interesting because we had already planned and we knew that Bonnaroo was getting canceled, and we had found a solution. So we made sure we had the solution when we told the girls. So we kind of faked them out a little bit. We basically canceled, got their reactions, and it was like, nah, but we're going here. And I think they got immediately excited and happy that it wasn't canceled. But their emotions were genuinely disappointed at first. These girls are, I mean, you've never seen an energy like this. If you were to meet these girls in person, they scream, they hug, you feel like you've known them your whole life. And it's just so positive and empowering. And so they were disappointed, but they got right back turned up, got their bags. Some of them had shades on when they were walking out that scene. I said, oh, you guys are superstars now. Like, this is a whole different flow and energy. So it was exciting to see that they had, indeed transformed at that point.
A final question for you. After that final performance in Minnesota, Lizzo made her final cuts. I was heartbroken as a viewer. I have to imagine you guys were heartbroken to see some of these people, leave the show. What was that moment like?
Seeing people leave the show was devastating. It was heartbreaking at times because you want everybody to win, but life doesn't work that way. And so much of us behind the scenes, especially the Black women behind the scenes, were making sure we fought. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want to add unnecessary stakes to this. If people need to go home, it should be organic and authentic, right? There's no growth, things like that. And I think a lot of times in these formatted shows, we add the stakes on top of the people, or, we just do it for the sake of the format. But in this case, we let it be authentic and organic when someone just wasn't working. It wasn't like, in every single episode, gone. And so I think it actually caught people more off guard because you assume no one was going home Like this, everyone was gonna win. And again, not going with that sob story, the real world doesn't work that way. And sometimes, unfortunately, you lose opportunities based on sometimes getting in your own way and things like that. And so I feel like it was sad because the things that are most sad are the things that are unexpected. And so I think that's what made it kind of devastating. And the girls were crying for hours. The next day we had to like check on them. We always had people on set, you know, therapists and things like that to take care of them, check on them, make sure their mental health was okay. And it was just, I was like, wow, this is sad. But, you know, the girls cheered up afterward. And, you know, as you can see, they all hang out together now on social media and things like that. So it was all good.
Well, Nneka, thank you for talking to us. We'll see you at the group panel at the end.
No problem.